Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Trollheim with your host, Rabbi Anibal. So glad to see so many of you already connected. Nice and early. Wow. Welcome to all of you. Let's see who is here. Amparo Goldman, first one to send a message. Welcome, Amparo. Great to have you. Andrea Royave is also with us, working and listening. That's what you can do when you have the right tech, the right technology. That's a great thing. Brendan David Grossman here. Donna Alden Bagden, welcome. I hope you feel better, Donna. RLP, is that Rocky Pollock? I think that would be my guess. If it's not, let me know. But welcome to all of you. So we have a new book of the Torah this week, book of Bemidbar, also called the Book of Numbers in English. Why is it called a Book of Numbers? Because we have lots of numbers. We have the census. We have this count that was done with our people. So we will know how many people we had after everything that they went through in the desert after they left Egypt. It's very interesting. So, yeah, we're going to study a little bit of that. And also, a quick reminder that next week is Shavuot. So next class, next Thursday, is going to be Erev Shavuot, which is the eve of Shavuot. Next Thursday in the evening. If I'm not mistaken, let me double check here what the situation is. And I don't want to... Yeah, next Thursday evening is Shavuot. So next Thursday, Torah, we are going to dedicate the class to study a little bit about Shavuot, to get ready. And hopefully you will join us for the Tikkun Leil Shavuot that we are planning. It is a tradition for the first, at some synagogues, the second night of Shavuot, to stay up all night if possible, or as late as you can, studying Torah. That's a tradition. It's called Tikkun Leil Shavuot. Tikkun comes from the word letaken, which means to correct. And what are we correcting that night? Well, we're going to talk about that next class. So I don't want to give you any spoilers. But what I want to tell you is, if you want to participate in our Tikkun, it's going to be a combined activity between Share Zedek and Temple Shalom. Another one of those two congregations under one roof event. And I will be teaching. Rabbi Alan Finkel is going to be teaching. And Rabbi Green is going to be in town. And he's also going to be teaching that evening. Welcome, Josue Selva. Welcome to the class. It's been a while since I've seen your name in the chat. You got fired out. Oh, come on. Oh, Josue. You take it with humor. Okay. But it's great that you're here with us. Okay? And I say we are going to study this week's Parsha, and next week we're going to study about Shavuot. And by the way, I am contemplating a few options on how to start doing the Torah live again with a crowd. I like the time slot, but we want to start streaming it from a public place. So if people are available in person, you can come in person, or you can still watch it online. I have a few ideas. I think they're good ideas, different things. You know me, I like to think outside the box, right? This is the box. This is me, outside the box. That's the way I like thinking. So hopefully you will like this crazy idea that I have. Okay, so let's begin to study about this week's Parsha Bemidbar or Bamidbar. I never knew why they call it Bamidbar, the book, if the word is Bemidbar in the Torah. Never mind. So we are going to start studying the Parsha. So let me bring for you the very beginning of the Parsha. right here. Book of Numbers, chapter 1, verse 1 to 3. Okay, the very, very, very beginning. I always like, if possible, to get some kind of teaching from the beginning of the reading. Remember, it's always the name of the parsha comes from one of the first words. So it's always nice to link it with why the parsha is called that way. Okay? It goes like this. Hashem spoke to Moses, in the Sinai desert, in the tent of meeting, on the first day of the second month of the second year after they have left the land of Egypt. Okay? A whole year has passed now. So God said, take a census of the entire assembly of the people of Israel by clans and families. Record the names of all the men, 20 years old and over, who are subject to military service in Israel. You and Aaron are to enumerate them according to their legions. Okay, so a few things that we learned here out of the bat. Actually, I would say three main things. Let's see if we can count. Number one, there is a specific mention here that all this happened in the Sinai desert. All these laws that God has been revealing to Moses and the Jewish people, there is a very explicit mentioning that everything has been happening on the Sinai desert. And the rabbis seems to find a reason of why this is highlighted. Okay? We're going to start in a minute analyzing that concept. Why the emphasis? Why the highlight of everything is happening in the Sinai desert? Okay, number one. Number two, it will be that they had to take a census to know how many people they have. Up to that time, if you go back in the Bible, was always God letting us know how many people were there. It was never up to the people to count. It was always something that we learned because, like for example, how many people left Egypt and how many families and things. We know that because that is information that it was provided by God. But now it's their responsibility to go and count people. Then again, if you go read all the details, it was a very interesting way and how the census was done. And you know that in Judaism, we are not allowed to count people. And then you say, well, if you're not allowed to count people, how come God is requesting a census? Well, we cannot count people directly. It has to be an indirect method. You have to use some kind of indirect method. So the method that the Torah will eventually teach and how to do it is everybody will have to contribute a coin, and then you go and count the coins. It's why going through that extra step in order to count people? That's a great question, and there is no answer in the Torah. Okay, we don't know why. That. So there are many theories, and the rabbis talk about that. At the end of the day, the most popular theory of why we cannot count people is because I say when you point at somebody, the rabbis say that there is an extra harsh judgment by God, in the sense that God judges the Jewish people as a whole, but if you point at somebody, there is a specific judgment over that individual, and you're attracting too much attention from God to that individual, and then everything that you did wrong will be known to God at that moment. Okay, so we don't count people, to the point that if you ever come to synagogue, at least in traditional synagogues, early in the morning or before a service, when they need to know if there is a minyan, if they need to know if there are at least 10 people in the synagogue, they never go 1, 2, 3, 4. They don't count with using a finger. The way people count is they look at different people reciting a verse from the scripture containing 10 words. So if you start looking at everybody there and you can reach to the end of the verse, right? And looking at that, so that you have at least 10 people in the sanctuary, you can start a service with a minyan. But you never go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until 10. That is a no-no. Why? Because the way we learn how to count in the synagogue, and it's never a direct counting. Okay? Have you ever been through that? Have you ever experienced that? I did. I went to a synagogue once and somebody freaked out on me for starting to count using my finger. And that's how I learned it. Okay? And then I went and read more about it. But that was my first experience. Thank God I was into synagogue world, because if it was somebody else, maybe the first experience into synagogue life, and you go and you start counting, somebody freaks out on you, chances are you would never come back to that place. I took it as a learning experience, moved on. Okay? So I'm teaching you this. If it ever happens to you, don't get offended. That is a very strong tradition. That we don't do it. It's a bad omen. Okay? So that's why people may freak out on you if you start counting using the finger. Okay? And the third thing that we read here that is also very interesting is that only count men from 20 years up. So everybody below 20 years, it was not counted, and women were not counted as well. Okay? Maybe if we have time, we are going to explore why that's the case. I mean, the explicit thing that we read here is they needed to know how many soldiers they had. Women didn't serve in the army, so it was no need to count. And people under 20 years of age also didn't serve in the army, so there was no need to count them. Okay? But then this number 20, where is that coming from? Because we always have the number 13 as the year of adulthood. Why now all of a sudden we are counting 20 years and above? Stay there. We're going to explore that as well. Okay? So let's start with the first thing that I noticed here, and it's the fact that the Torah is highlighting the concept of everything happening in the desert of Sinai. Okay? So let's go to the Midrash to see what the Midrash have to say about this. And it says, Hashem spoke to Moshe in the Sinai desert. Now, the Torah was given to the people of Israel in the ownerless desert. I know, in these days, all deserts have an owner that will belong to a country or another, right? Back in the day, it wasn't like that. Nobody wanted, there was no ownership of the desert because nobody lived there. The countries, the kingdoms were interesting on lands where they could either do something or to tax the people. But the desert was considered ownerless. It's like the oceans in these days. Okay? After I don't know how many kilometers of the ocean, when you're leaving a country into the ocean, after an X number of kilometers, it's considered international waters. And it doesn't have an owner. It doesn't belong to a country. So the desert in this context was just like that. Okay? So, the Torah was given to the people of Israel in the ownerless desert. And this is important. Why? For if it were given in the land of Israel, the residents of the land of Israel would say, it is ours. And if it were given in some other place, the residents of that place will say, it is ours. Therefore, it was given in the wilderness, so that anyone who wishes to acquire it may acquire it. So this is something that's extremely important. That yes, the Torah became the source of inspiration for the Jewish people. And we have a very particular way to understand the Torah. But the reality is that many cultures adopted the Torah, the Bible, in different ways and also made the Torah their own, in their own ways. And the Midrash will say that's fine. That's what the Torah was revealed in the desert. So it belongs for everybody. And everybody who would like to access the Torah and to connect to the Torah to enrich their lives, they don't have to become Jewish to do that. You can relate to the Torah from your own place, because the Torah belongs to the entire humanity. And this is something that it was, now we talk about that, and we live in a global world, and this concept is a little bit easier to understand. This is coming from way, way, way before that, which I think is a beautiful message that we learn. So this is what I wanted to say about this. If you have any comments, about this, please let me know in the chat. The chat is not just for you to say, hello, I'm here. We also use the chat to share ideas and to ask questions. Rocky is saying, interesting, because conservationists urge us to take ownership of deserts. Yeah, in that sense, yes. But we are talking about land property here. It didn't have a land title. We have to take care of the whole world, right? But ownerless in the sense that it didn't belong to any country in particular, the desert. And that's why the desert was the place to reveal the Torah. Now, let's continue with the second thing that I mentioned before. And it's the fact that now we had a census. God will not give us the information anymore. It was up to us to count people, to plan, to strategize. Because I believe they have faith in God. Moses at least has faith in God, but he also wanted to know how many soldiers he had. And I think it's teaching us something about also taking ownership of our own lives, taking responsibilities of what we do. Being aware of your resources is not a bad thing. It's not, you're not showing any kind of lack of faith, the sense that you want to know how much resources, what do you have, and to plan accordingly. It's not saying, I don't want to do that. God will provide. I don't have to take responsibility of anything. Well, this is very interesting, because what we are learning is, God provides for our needs, but you also have to be aware of what you have, and you have to plan accordingly. That's why people make budgets and things like that, right? Because that comes after the awareness of what you have. And then you can plan accordingly and get the best results. But everything starts with the process of being aware of the resources that you have. And that was one of the reasons for the census. But the rabbis go beyond that. And they will say that there is more into the commandments of counting the people. So I would like to bring for you Rashi and his opinion about this. Rashi says, because of God's great love for his people, for Israel, God counts them all the time. God counted them when they left Egypt. God counted them after they fell in the wake of the sin of the golden calf, to know the number of the survivors. Yeah, because basically it was decimated. So they needed to know once again how many people were alive now. And God counted them when God came to manifest his presence with them. Okay. On the 1st of Nisan, the sanctuary was erected. And 1 month later, on the 1st of Iyar, God counted them again. Now, it's interesting because Rashi will say God counted them, but not all the counts were made directly by God. Some of the counts were made already by the Jewish people, but as a commandment of God. So it is as God is counting us, because God gave us a commandment to count the people. Okay? So In other words, what I wanted to say here is, according to Rashi, the census and the act of counting the people is an act of love. And this is what I would like to know from all of you. My dear students, why do you think Rashi calls the act of counting an act of love? What's your opinion? Why do you think this is called an act of love from God to the people of Israel? Any ideas? Any opinions? Please let me know in the chat. I will give you a minute. I will give you a minute to start typing, because I know there is a delay from the time that I talk to the time that you hear, and then from the time you type to the time that I can read it here on my screen. So I'm very interested in what you think on why this is called an act of love. And this will actually, this could be also the principle that we have here could be applied to any kind of census that countries have. Have you ever realized why we have a census in Canada every few years? What's the reason? What's the motivation? Why the need to have a census? It's interesting because I studied this topic with a few of my bar mitzvah students. Every time we read a parsha that is talking about a census, and we talk about why the need of a census even in the 21st century, or especially maybe in the 21st century, why censuses are so important. Brenda Grossman, first one to answer here. Let me see. He said, God recognized each as an individual, and everyone makes a difference, and therefore is counted. So very good. Very nice. Very nice. So basically the act of counting, if I understand you properly, is that you feel everybody special. You count. In fact, it's an expression that we always use when you ask somebody, can I count on you? And they will say, yes, you can count on me. And it's a way to make somebody special to your project. Right? It's that you want to do something, you need somebody to help you. I say, can I count on you? That means that you count. Your presence makes a difference to the outcome of that project. And that is a great thing. Rocky Pollack, if Rashi is correct, then each of us enjoys the personal attention of Hashem. Well, yeah, but the thing is, technically you may argue that we don't need a census to feel that. Well, hey, God is there for us all the time, but following your rationale, Rocky, what Rashi is saying is, yeah, we are special to God, period. No string attached. But by counting us, God is letting us know that we count for God. And there is a difference between knowing something and making that something explicit. Right? It's like I can love somebody and never say it. And then I can also say, I love you. And then now you know. And then I know, hopefully the person knew already, but by saying it, you're reinforcing something. So there is no guessing. There is no guessing. It's explicit. The importance, the connection, and the love. Okay? But what I see here is also that there is more, because the fact that God gave us the commandment to count is also a way for the times where the presence of God sometimes is not explicit. Because if you can take the time machine, suppose to biblical times, right? And back in those days, according to the biblical descriptions, the presence of God was explicit. The kind of miracles that they experienced, they're not the kind of miracles that we experience, right? We have to really, really make an effort to see the hand of God behind things. Back then, if the entire Red Sea will split in front of you, well, that was pretty explicit to me. I mean, it would be difficult to argue with that kind of miracle. We don't live in those days, so we won't have the explicit voice of God telling us how special we are and that we count and so forth. But by God giving us the mitzvah, the commandment of counting individuals to make them feel important. That is something that it could be applied in every generation. And the census that countries do, at least the idea, is also to make people feel that they count. Because many of the policies that are going to be taken by the governments, hopefully, will be based on the kind of people that live in such country. They will know the needs of people. They will know the backgrounds. And then that should help to make it create better policies. It happens or not, I don't know. But it's a thing. Shelley Chochinov, census becomes a unit of measurement for warfare, economic resources, grain, minerals, tithing, etc. And then we've lost our ability to be amazed at the wonders of what we see around us. Yeah, but that's a different thing. Yeah. So this is one thing, right? What Rashi was saying. But now the Hasidic, the Hasidic rabbis, and the next text that I will show you is kind of a summary of many of their ideas. And you will see that there is also another layer with this counting people and making them feel special, right? There is another side to that, and I would like to start exploring that with you with this next text. A census expresses two paradoxical truths. Listen to this. On the one hand, it implies that each individual is significant. We've been talking about that. On the other hand, a head count is the ultimate equalizer. Each member of the community, from the greatest to the lowliest, counts for no less and no more than one. God repeatedly commands Moses to count the Jewish people to emphasize both the individual worth, the fact that no single person's contribution is dispensable, as well as their inherent equality. That might be also one of the reasons why the way of counting was by everybody giving the same coin. Okay? From the richest to the poor, they have to give half shekel. Very small coin. Very small coin. And then there will be somebody counting how many coins. And the thing is, when you count the coins, you don't know who put that coin. Was it a rich person, a poor person? Doesn't matter. All the coins were equal. All the coins were the same. So that's what these rabbis are actually finding here, this kind of a contradiction. For one side, I'm making you feel special. And the other side, I'm making you feel just like anybody else. For some people, that could be okay, right? If you consider yourself that you are the lowest of society, making you feel that you are like the others, I might make you feel good. I don't know. But if you're a rich, important person with status and power, making you feel that you are like the others could be very humbling. So we have these two things here, the tension between the two comments. Yes. Welcome, Lee Solomon, Shalom, and Christine Reyes is here as well. Great to have you. Great to have you. And remember, if you missed any part of the class, don't worry. This class is going to be rebroadcasted tonight at 8 p.m. And if you cannot wait until 8, as soon as this class is over, you can go to our YouTube channel and then you can replay it from there. So it's not a problem. It's not a problem. Okay. So again, we are here at the concept of the tension between how special you are and how the same you are to other people. Okay? And about that, there was this Rabbi Simcha Bunim, Poland, 19th century. He said, listen to this, I love this one. Everyone must have 2 pockets with a note in each pocket, so that he or she can reach into one or the other, depending on the need. When feeling lonely and depressed, discouraged, or disconsolate, one should reach into the right pocket and there find the words, "The world was created for me." But when feeling high and mighty, one should reach into the left pocket and find the words, "I am but dust and ashes." What a thing, if you feel too important, I guess celebrating is good. Celebrating achievement is good. But what it says that once in a while you have to remember. Once in a while you have to remember that you are but dust and ashes. By the way, that is quoting Abraham. Abraham was the one who said that. Okay? And the other one, the word was created for me, is coming from the Talmud, Sanhedrin 37a. In a minute I'm going to show you the whole text there. I always like to do that. I don't know if you know that about me. Whenever I quote something from the Talmud, I want to take you to that page of the Talmud so we can read it together. Because Rabbi Simcha Bunim, he knew his Talmud, he knew his Gemara, so he's just quoting that little thing, but it's coming from a larger text that I want to show you in a minute, so you can do that process by yourself. Okay? So what do you think about this? Having this balance within us, that reminding ourselves constantly, on one side, the world was created for you. The world was created for you. You are the most important thing in the world. And on the other hand, to say, what do you think you are? You are just or nothing but dust and ashes. So don't think you are better than anybody else. This is an interesting thing. So I wanna know how that makes you feel. These 2 papers that Rabbi Simcha Bunim says you should have in both sides, right and left. Let me know in the chat. Meanwhile, I want to bring you the Sanhedrin 37a and to try to understand why Rabbi Simcha Bunim decided to quote that page of the Talmud. Shelley Church, said, helps us keep us humble. Yeah. You may say, your dust and ashes may keep you humble, but what about the other one? What about the other one? The one that said you're the most important thing in the world. I will give you my answer. That also keeps you humble. Because I think we have a misunderstanding what being humble is. Right? And if you don't feel that the world was created for you, you can't be humble. If you can't feel that way, you might have low self-esteem, which is not the same of being humble. Anyway, maybe that's for another class. Okay, let's read Sanhedrin 37a. It says, Adam, first human being, was created alone due to the importance of maintaining peace among people, so that one person will not say to another, my father is greater than your father. And it was also that the heretics who believe in multiple gods will not say, there are many authorities in heaven, and each created a different person. This serves to tell of the greatness of the Holy One, blessed be He. As when a person stamps several coins on one seal, they are all similar to each other. The Supreme King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be He, stamped all people with the seal of Adam, the first man, as all of them are his offspring, and not one of them is similar to another. Therefore, since all humanity descends from one person, and each and every person is obligated to say, the world was created for me. As one person can be the source of all humanity, recognize the significance of his action. So this text also, maybe you have heard the phrase, whoever saves a soul saves the entire universe, or saves the entire world. Have you ever heard that? Whoever saves a soul saves the entire world. What is that coming from? It's coming from this exact text, coming from the realization that we are coming from Adam. So from one person came the entire world that we know, as we know it. It took many generations, but it doesn't matter. It all came from one person, entire world. So every individual has the potential of becoming an entire world. So if you save a soul, you are saving also all that potential world coming out of that person. And if you destroy a soul, if you destroy life, you are destroying an entire world. And it's all coming from Sanhedrin 37a. This phrase of saving a soul, serving the world, came into, resonated even stronger during the Holocaust, when there were many people risking their lives to save Jews. And many of them were recognized after the war was over as righteous among the nations. And the part of the recognitions was to let them know that in Judaism we believe that they saved an entire world for every person they save. Okay? Or in other words, when we say a soul saved, is a world saved. And that is a message that it was communicated to all these righteous people who helped Jews during the Second War. A soul saved is a world saved. It's come from this text. Okay? From Sanhedrin 37a. So this is one of the texts that Rabbi Bunim quoted in his teaching that we should have two pockets. The other text he's quoting is from Genesis, that it says, I am but dust and ashes. What is that coming from? Well, he was quoting Abraham. Genesis, it says like this, and the Lord answered, if I find within the city of Sodom 50 innocent ones, I will forgive the whole place for their sake. Remember, God wanted to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, and God decided to communicate that to Abraham, and Abraham started to negotiate with God, trying to save those cities. Remember that. Okay? So this is the answer that Abraham gave God. Abraham spoke up saying, here I venture to speak to my Lord, I who am but dust and ashes. So in other words, Abraham was saying to God, God, I'm going to speak to you, but not because I believe that I'm more important than other people around. On the contrary, I believe that I am just dust and ashes, but nevertheless, from that place of humility, I'm going to speak to you. And then Abraham said, what if the 50 innocent should lack 5? Will you destroy the whole city for want of the 5? And God answered, I will not destroy it if I find 45 there. So these are the two things I wanted to give you a little bit of a background, where those two things that Rabbi Bunim is quoting are coming from. One from the Talmud, one from the book of Genesis. But again, is this two things that we should always have into consideration to keep us humble. One hand, the world was created for me, just for me, not for you, for me. The other side, I am but dust and ashes, just like everyone else in the world. Interesting thing. Okay? Now, I have another. Oh, let's read this one. It's a beautiful teaching from Rabbi Luzzatto. He wrote a beautiful book called The Path of the Upright. If you can get it, it's a beautiful, beautiful book. And he writes this, right, about this thing of dealing with pride and humility, and what is the path that we have to actually follow in life. And you said, yeah, you have to be humble. Of course you have to be humble. But Luzzatto will say, not every humble person is the same. Listen to this. I love this one. Another imagines, so here Luzzatto is giving examples of different kind of people. In theory, to the untrained eye, they're all humble. Okay? They're all humble. They all look humble. But, he says, another imagines that he's so great and so deserving of honor that no one can deprive him of the usual signs of respect. And to prove this, he behaves as though he were humble and goes to great extremes in displaying boundless modesty and infinite humility. But in his heart, he is proud, saying to himself, I am so exalted and so deserving of honor that I need not have anyone to do me honor. I can well afford to forego marks of respect. You understand? This is the person that he or she feels that everybody should be honoring them. But they feel that they are so great that, even though I deserve it, I won't request it. I won't ask people to do it because I know that I deserve it. Such people could look to us as a humble person. But Luzzatto would say, be careful. Be careful, because sometimes that's not what's really in their hearts. Deep inside, they are not humble at all. The reason for not requesting any honor is not sincere. Or it's not sincere, it's not valid. That reason is not valid. That is not a reaction of a true humble person. And then he continues. Another is the vain person who wants to be noticed for his superior qualities and to be singled out for his behavior. He is not satisfied with having everyone praise him for the superior traits he thinks he possesses, but he wants them also to include in their praises that he is the most humble of men. He does take pride in his humility and wishes to be honored because he pretends to flee from honor. Such a person usually goes so far as to put himself below those who are much inferior to him, even below the meanest, thinking that in this way he displays the utmost humility. He refuses all titles of greatness and declines promotion in rank, but in his heart he thinks there is no one in all the world as wise and as humble as I. Conceited people for this type, though they pretend mightily to be humble, cannot escape from mishap which causes their pride to burst forth like flame out of a heap of litter. We all know these people. They're everywhere. Some people like also to be recognized because they are so humble. Right? So say it. Say it out loud. I'm humble. Just say it. Recognize it. Yeah. As I said, Luzzatto's work, Path of Upright, he has lots of these things. So it's wonderful if you can read his work on ethics and things like that. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Any comments? Let me know in the chat. Any comments about this? Maybe you're too humble to write something. Anyway, talking about this comment from Rabbi Lutzato, I want to share with you this Hasidic tale talking about this. There is a little bit of humor on it. It's not a joke, but there is humor. Let's see if you let's enjoy it together. It goes like this. A Hasidic tale tells of a man who came to the tzaddik with a complaint. You know what a tzaddik is? Tzaddik is like a pious rabbi within Hasidim. All my life, he said, I have tried to follow the advice of the rabbis that once who runs away from fame, will find that fame pursues him. And yet, while I run away from fame, fame never seems to pursue me. There is actually a phrase that the rabbi said, if you run after fame, fame will run away from you, and vice versa. The tzaddik replied, the trouble is that while you do run away from fame, you're always looking over your shoulder to see if fame is chasing after you. Yeah, that's the problem. A true humble person is never looking or looking around to see if people are noticing how humble they are. If people are already planning to honor this person, Yeah. That's not what true humility is. Now the Nachmanides, the Ramban, he also had his own advice in the topic of humility. And he will say, I should explain how you should become accustomed to practice of humility in your daily life. So now we are going into something that is very rare, and that is practical advice on how to start developing a more humble approach to life, according to the Nachmanides. Okay, I don't think there is one single formula how to do it, but he'll say his way, his method to train this humility muscle, because it has to be trained. He will say, let your voice be gentle and your head bowed. Let your eyes be turned earthwards and your heart heavenwards. When you speak to someone, do not look him in the face. So in other words, what he said is don't try to intimidate the other person. Right? Sometimes we like to look at somebody else's eyes as a way of intimidation. So what you do, don't make eye contact like that. Just don't. Let every man seem superior to you in your own eyes. If he is wise or rich, you have reason to respect him. If he is poor and you are richer or wiser than he, think to yourself that you are therefore all the more unworthy, and he all the less. For if you sin, you do so intentionally, where he only sins unintentionally. And the Nachmanides, he wrote a whole letter about this. This is just a little passage. It's called the Higeret Ramban. Higeret means letter. The letter of the Ramban. I believe he wrote it to his son. I don't remember. I read the book. There is a whole book published about that letter. It's beautiful. I read it multiple times with all this kind of practical examples. And I don't see that there are many things that may be also cultural. This was written in the Middle Ages, so some of the things may not feel so contemporary for us. But nevertheless, it's a beautiful book if you can get it. Higeret Ramban, the letter of the Ramban. Ramban with an N at the end. The Rambam with an M is the Maimonides. This is the Nachmanides. Okay, just in case if you ever wanna search for us, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Okay. Now, I wanted also to share this with you because I think this rabbi also is making a very interesting point. Listen to this. On the deeper level, the notion is found, especially in Hasidism, that humility is not the mere absence of pride. Okay? Rather, it consists not so much in thinking little of oneself as in not thinking of oneself at all. When the Hasidism and other Jewish mystics speak of annihilation of the selfhood, they are not thinking of conscious effort of the will. To try to nullify the self by calling attention to it is bound to end in failure. Instead, the mystic tend to suggest the mind should be encouraged to overlook entirely all consideration of both inferiority and superiority. In other words, when you start thinking about inferiorities and superiority, the ego is involved into that math, into that formula. You have to involve your ego, and that's what we are trying to avoid. So the whole thing about the reaching true humility is a way to eliminate our ego, or to control it, to make it not part of our life. This is something that I believe it takes, it's integral part of the concept of Pesach, when we get our freedom from Egypt. That is also a freedom from ego, when many times the Pharaoh of Egypt, is considered our ego dictating our lives. And we broke free from Pharaoh, free from ego, and became servants of God. So instead of being the ego dictating what you do or you don't do, is the Torah giving us the advice. That's the thing. And this is very important when we go from Pesach to Shavuot, when we leave the ego behind, and there is a process of 7 weeks until we are ready to embrace the Torah as our new master. That's something that is also very, very interesting. Okay? So, one of the other things about this is because Moses, is considered by the rabbis as the most humble person that ever lived on earth. The Torah, in fact, there is a verse in the Torah specifically talking about that there was nobody as humble as Moses. It will never be. It will never be. We can try. But the Torah said nobody will ever be as humble as Moses. And there are a few things in the Torah that we will see that Moses have great qualities of humility. One of the things I've been working with one of my bar mitzvah students is, for example, I don't know if you remember when Miriam, when Moses' sister, started to spread gossip about Moses marrying an Ethiopian woman, right? And she was punished with leprosy by God for what she said about Moses. She probably made some kind of racist comment, and she was punished. And now Moses has all the right to go, he was deeply offended, in theory, right? Somebody said something about his wife. Somebody said something about his choice. Was he offended? No, what he did was amazing. He just prayed for her healing. He overlooked all the offense. And he saw his sister now in pain because she was sick with leprosy. And he prayed for her and she was healed. Talking about, I believe, the purity of Moses' prayer was not contaminated by anger or ego or anything. So, not easy, especially in this generation that we get offended so quickly, right? And I think sometimes, the reason for us to get offended is because, we believe that we are better than others, and our opinions are better than others. And then somebody say something that we don't like, we just react to us. Wondering what it takes to react like Moses. Instead of getting offended, to pray for the other person, and the other person gets immediately healed. It's a great thing. And in this week's Parsha, for example, you will say that it says in chapter 3, it said, this is the line of Aaron and Moses at the time that the Lord spoke with Moses at Mount Sinai. And the Midrash will say, usually Moses appears before Aaron in a verse. But in certain places, Aaron is mentioned first. This is to teach us that they were both of equal importance. Can you imagine? Hey, God, why did you mention Aaron before me? Come on, I thought I was special to you. Shouldn't I be the first one? After all, I am Moses, the deliverer. He's just my brother. No, he was beyond that. He was beyond that. To prove a point, we read sometimes in the Torah, Aaron is mentioned before Moses, and that's okay. That's fine. That's fine as well. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in this afternoon. Great to share a little bit of Torah with all of you so we can study together. And again, this is all part of our preparation for Shavuot, which is next week. Next Thursday evening is Shavuot. And hopefully you're going to join us for our Tikkun, that we are going to have a Temple Shalom. It's going to be a 3 rabbis Tikkun. It's going to be myself, Rabbi Alan Finkel from Temple Shalom, and Rabbi Alan Green. Our Rabbi Emeritus is coming to visit us, and he's going to be teaching as well. So don't miss that. Please visit szwinnipeg.ca, and you will have all the events that we have prepared for you for Shavuot. We have the Tikkun, we have a special Kabbalat Shabbat, we have the Saturday morning that is Shabbat and Shavuot, and we are going to have the graduation of the Choosing Judaism class. Some people call it conversion classes, but all the graduates will be there having their first Aliyah to the Torah. So if you can make it in person, please do. Otherwise, you know us, it's going to be streamed and you can welcome them online as well. So thank you everyone for being here. If you missed it, if you missed any part of the class, remember 8 p.m. tonight, it's going to be streamed again. Please give us the thumbs up. Share this video with somebody else if you want. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Have a good Shabbos. If I don't see you before Shabbat, stay safe. Hope to see you soon. Bye everyone.